What if everything you've been taught about human history is incomplete, missing entire chapters of civilizations so advanced, so spiritually awakened, they left behind clues etched not just in stone, but in the very fabric of our collective consciousness? For centuries, whispers of lost worlds, Atlantis, Lemuria, the ancient lands of Hyperborea, have danced on the edges of myth and reality. But what if these weren't just stories? What if they were fragments of a hidden truth, waiting for those with the eyes to see? Imagine standing at the edge of a forgotten ruin, your fingers tracing symbols carved by hands that belonged to a people who understood the universe in ways we're only beginning to grasp. These weren't just builders or farmers. They were seers, alchemists, and star walkers who tapped into energies we can barely fathom today. Their knowledge wasn't just lost, it was systematically buried, erased by time, and those who feared the power it held. Yet, beneath the deserts, jungles, and even beneath our feet, their legacy lingers, humming a tune only the most attuned can hear. This isn't just about uncovering dusty artifacts or decoding ancient texts. It's about reclaiming a spiritual inheritance, a connection to something far greater than ourselves. For every spiritual seeker who's felt a pull towards something inexplicable, a longing for a wisdom that feels just out of reach, this is your invitation to the journey. Together, we'll peel back the layers of deception, follow the breadcrumbs left by masterful ancestors, and step into a story that rewrites not just history, but the very essence of what it means to be human. The truth is here. Are you ready to see it? A hidden civilization isn't merely a society lost to time. It's a culture so deeply attuned to the mysteries of existence. Its very existence threatens the foundations of what we think we know. These weren't just groups of people living in the past. They were custodians of profound spiritual technologies, architects of realities where matter and energy danced in harmony, and keepers of secrets that could unlock human potential beyond our wildest dreams. Mainstream history dismisses them as myth because their existence challenges the linear, materialistic narrative we've been fed. But esoteric traditions whisper another truth. These civilizations flourished because they operated from a higher dimension of understanding, one where consciousness shaped reality itself. Think of the great spiritual traditions, the yogis of ancient India, the mystery schools of Egypt, the shamans of the Americas. They all share echoes of a common thread, knowledge that didn't evolve, but was inherited. The pyramids, the megaliths, the sacred geometry etched into temples across the globe, these aren't coincidences. They're fingerprints. Those who built them understood the language of the cosmos, the vibrational codes that govern everything from the stars to the human soul. Modern academia calls it superstition. But what if these structures were actually devices, not just tombs or temples, but resonant chambers designed to amplify consciousness, to bridge the physical and the divine? The suppression of these truths wasn't accidental. When a paradigm shift threatens the established order, the first casualty is always memory. Empires rise by controlling the narrative, and nothing disrupts control like the revelation that humans once wielded power beyond brute force power, drawn from sacred knowledge, from unity with the unseen. That's why these civilizations were erased, their libraries burned, their priests silenced, yet their legacy persists in the substrata of our spirituality. Every meditation that connects you to something greater, every synchronicity that feels like the universe whispering, that's their inheritance reaching through the veil. This isn't about nostalgia for a golden age. It's about recognizing that the keys to our future lie buried in our past. The ancients didn't just leave behind ruins, they left roadmaps. The real question isn't whether these civilizations existed, but what happens when we finally admit they did and dare to reclaim what they knew. Plato first spoke of Atlantis not as legend, but as history, a cautionary tale whispered to him by Egyptian priests who guarded memories older than the pyramids themselves. In his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, he describes an island empire beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a civilization so advanced it made Bronze Age cultures look primitive. But here's what most miss. Plato wasn't just recounting a flood myth. He was documenting a spiritual collapse. The Atlanteans didn't merely sink beneath the waves. They shattered their own destiny by misusing the very power that elevated them. Their downfall wasn't geological, it was karmic. Centuries later, the sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce would peer into the Akashic records and describe Atlantis with eerie precision, great crystalline power stations harnessing Earth's ley lines, healing temples where sound and light realigned the human energy field, even aerial vehicles propelled by vibrational frequencies. But Cayce's most chilling revelation, their technology outpaced their wisdom. The elite castes grew arrogant, weaponizing sacred knowledge for control, fracturing the natural order until the very crystals that powered their cities amplified their self-destruction. Modern channelers and intuitive archaeologists echo this dark mirror. They speak of a society that mastered quantum physics but forgot compassion, that could levitate stone yet couldn't lift their own greed. The Atlantean downfall wasn't a single cataclysm. It was a slow unraveling. Earthquakes and floods were merely the universe rebalancing what they'd thrown into disharmony. Some say fragments of their crystal grids still pulse at the bottom of the Atlantic, humming a warning to any civilization that repeats their fatal equation: power without purity, progress without purpose. What makes Atlantis more than just an ancient tragedy is its eerie reflection in our modern world. Like the Atlanteans, we stand at a crossroads armed with technology that could heal or exploit, connect or control. Their ruins may lie underwater, but their lesson hangs in the air we breathe. No civilization survives when it severs the cord between advancement and ethics. The crystals they left behind aren't just artifacts, they're tuning forks, still vibrating with the choice every advanced culture must eventually face. The idea that fragments of Atlantis didn't just vanish, that its people, their consciousness, even their unfinished business, transcended time and space to reemerge in our modern era, isn't just poetic speculation. It's a thread woven through countless spiritual traditions and the lived experiences of those who feel an inexplicable pull toward this lost world. Walk into any crystal workshop, energy healing circle, or past life regression session, and you'll hear it, the quiet confessions of those who carry memories too vivid to dismiss as imagination. They dream of towering obsidian temples, feel phantom wounds from a war fought millennia ago, or wake with fluency in languages no historian can place. These aren't mere fantasies, they're echoes of a soul contract, an agreement to return and resolve what Atlantis left unresolved. Consider the sheer number of spiritual seekers today drawn to Lemurian seed crystals, Atlantean sound healing, or the sacred geometry of flower of life patterns, practices with no formal modern origin, yet they feel like muscle memory to those who engage with them. The psychologist Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, but esoteric traditions go further. They speak of soul groups, clusters of beings who incarnate together across epochs, carrying shared karma, talents, and missions. If Atlantis fell because its people misused sacred knowledge, what if those same souls are back now, in an age of exponential technological growth and spiritual awakening, to choose differently this time? Edgar Cayce's readings suggested thousands of former Atlanteans incarnated in the 20th century, many as healers, inventors, and mystics, roles that mirror the very disciplines Atlantis once corrupted. Look deeper, and the parallels become uncanny. Modern energy medicine's use of frequency and vibration mirrors Atlantean healing temples. Sustainable technology innovators echo the island's lost reverence for Earth's harmonics. Even the global push toward unity consciousness reflects Atlantis's fatal flaw, the division between its priest scientists and the masses they sought to control. This isn't about assigning blame or romanticizing the past. It's about recognizing that history isn't linear. It's cyclical. The same souls, the same lessons, returning until the equation balances. If you've ever felt a surge of recognition holding a labradorite stone, or a visceral grief when hearing of ocean pollution, or an unshakable conviction that you're here to fix something you can't quite name, you might be touching the edges of an Atlantean soul memory. The key isn't to dwell in nostalgia, but to ask, what did I come back to heal? Not just in myself, but in the collective. Because if Atlantis's legacy teaches us anything, it's that the greatest technologies mean nothing without the wisdom to wield them. And that wisdom is what we're here to reclaim. Long before the waves of the Pacific carried explorers to Hawaii's shores, another land whispered beneath the ocean's surface, a continent older than Atlantis, steeped in a harmony so profound its people communicated not with words, but through the silent language of thought. This was Lemuria, or Mu, a civilization so deeply woven into the fabric of spiritual traditions that its absence from history books feels less like an oversight and more like a deliberate omission. While Atlantis harnessed crystals and power grids, Lemuria mastered something far more elusive, the art of collective consciousness. Imagine a society where telepathy wasn't a rare gift, but the very foundation of daily life, where emotions, ideas, and even memories flowed between souls as effortlessly as breath. The remnants of their world aren't buried in stone tablets or crumbling ruins, but in the living traditions of the Pacific. Hawaiian elders speak of Kahiki, an ancestral homeland beyond the horizon where their gods walked among humans. Polynesian navigators, guided by the stars and the songs of their ancestors, trace their lineage back to a place their chants call Hawaii, a land of towering peaks and lush valleys now lost to the sea. These aren't just myths, they're cultural DNA, carrying the echoes of a people who understood that true connection transcends the physical. The hula dance, with its rhythmic gestures and sacred chants, is said to be a remnant of Lemurian ceremonial language, a way of telling stories through the body's wisdom, not just the mind's logic. At the heart of Lemuria's legacy lies Mount Shasta in California, a site shrouded in mystery. Indigenous tribes and modern mystics alike insist the mountain is a living portal, home to the last remnants of Lemuria's ascended masters. Legends tell of hidden crystal caves beneath its slopes, where beings of pure light maintain the vibrational blueprints of their lost world. Whether metaphor or literal truth, the symbolism is striking. A society so attuned to the Earth's frequencies chose a volcanic peak, a place where the planet's energy rises closest to the surface, as their final sanctuary. What makes Lemuria's story so urgent today isn't just its technological or spiritual advancements, but its cautionary tale of balance. Where Atlantis fell to hubris, Lemuria is said to have dissolved through a different fate, not destruction, but transcendence. Some traditions suggest their people didn't perish in a cataclysm, but chose to ascend, merging their collective consciousness with the planet itself. If true, it raises a haunting question. Did they leave because the world was no longer ready for them, or because they'd completed their mission to plant the seeds of unity that would one day bloom in our time? The proof isn't just in legends or distant mountains, but in the quiet moments when modern seekers experience inexplicable connections. Reiki practitioners who channel energies older than recorded history, lightworkers drawn inexplicably to the Pacific's ley lines, even children who describe past lives in a land of perpetual sunrise. These are the breadcrumbs Lemuria left behind. Their greatest temple wasn't built of stone, but of resonance, and its doors aren't locked, just waiting for us to remember how to listen. If the fall of Lemuria didn't mark the end of its people, but rather their retreat into the earth itself, what does that mean for us today? The hollow earth theory isn't just fringe speculation. It's a thread woven through ancient Tibetan texts, indigenous oral histories, and even the accounts of early 20th century explorers. who swore they'd found entrances to a hidden world beneath our feet. At the heart of this idea lies Agartha, a vast subterranean realm said to be lit not by sun, but by crystalline cores and luminescent gases, where Lemuria's descendants evolved beyond the need for surface conflict. While modern science dismisses the notion of a hollow planet, the persistence of these stories across cultures raises a tantalizing question. What if hollow doesn't mean empty space, but a parallel dimension, one vibrating at a frequency just beyond our ordinary perception? Take the legends of Shambhala, the Tibetan kingdom of enlightened beings said to dwell inside the Himalayas. Ancient scrolls describe it as a place where time bends, where sages guard esoteric knowledge in libraries of living light. The Dalai Lama himself has spoken of Shambhala not as metaphor, but as a real sanctuary accessible only to those who have purified their consciousness. Now layer this with reports from pilots and mountaineers who have witnessed unexplained aerial phenomena near these peaks, glowing discs emerging from solid rock, orbs darting into cavernous openings. Suddenly, the line between spiritual tradition and extraterrestrial lore blurs. Could these phenomena be glimpses of Agarthan technology, remnants of Lemuria's mastery over vibration and light? The most chilling evidence might lie in the accounts of those who claim to have ventured below. Admiral Richard Byad's disputed 1947 diary entries describe flying over a polar opening into a land of lush valleys and advanced beings who warned him of surface humanity's destructive path. Indigenous Hopi elders speak of ant people who sheltered their ancestors underground during global cataclysms, teaching them to survive in tunable resonance chambers, echoing eerily with modern theories about sound frequency and longevity. Even Hitler's obsession with Tibetan expeditions takes on new meaning when you consider rumors of Nazi scientists seeking Agarthan power sources for their occult weapons programs. Whether literal or symbolic, the hollow earth narrative carries a profound message. Civilizations don't always die. Sometimes they adapt. If Lemuria's descendants truly withdrew beneath the crust or shifted into a higher dimensional plane, their choice reflects a devastating truth that enlightenment isn't just about attaining wisdom, but preserving it from those who would weaponize or exploit it. The caves beneath Mount Shasta, the tunnels rumored beneath the Gobi Desert, even the bizarre inner earth testimonies from modern contactees, they all point to a pattern. Those who remember how to listen report strange harmonies in these places, frequencies that realign DNA or trigger sudden spiritual awakenings. Perhaps Agartha isn't a place on any map, but a state of resonant alignment, waiting for the day humanity evolves enough to hear its call again. Far to the north, beyond the biting winds and frozen wastes where modern maps end, the ancient Greeks whispered of a paradise untouched by time, a land where the sun never set and sorrow never lingered. This was Hyperborea, the realm of eternal summer, where golden-haired giants walked among fields of perpetual bloom, and the god Apollo himself was said to visit in a chariot drawn by swans. Unlike Atlantis or Lemuria, Hyperborea wasn't lost to catastrophe. It was deliberately hidden, veiled by the shifting ice and the forgetfulness of ages. But the clues are there, woven into myth and mystic tradition, waiting for those who dare to trace them back to their source. The Greek poet Pindar described Hyperboreans as a race free from sickness, old age, and strife, living in harmony with nature and the divine. Their society had no war, no prisons, no greed, only temples where music rose like incense and knowledge flowed as freely as their sacred rivers. But here's what most historians overlook. Hyperborea wasn't just a poetic fantasy. Theosophists like Helena Blavatsky later identified it as the original homeland of humanity's root race, a people so spiritually advanced they communicated through telepathy and drew energy directly from the cosmos. Even the Nazis, in their twisted quest for Aryan origins, sent expeditions to the Arctic searching for traces of this lost utopia, proof of how deeply the legend has haunted humanity's imagination. The science of antiquity might surprise you. Geological surveys suggest the Arctic wasn't always frozen. Fossil evidence reveals lush forests once thrived, where glaciers now dominate. Ancient star maps from cultures as disparate as the Egyptians and the Chinese align, with an eerie precision, all pointing to a time when the North Pole may have been a habitable Eden. And then there are the megaliths, strange rune-covered stones scattered across Scandinavia and Siberia, their carvings depicting a sun that circles the sky without ever dipping below the horizon. These aren't random artworks, they're celestial diaries, records of a land where darkness was unknown. But Hyperborea's greatest secret isn't its location, it's the reason it vanished. Some traditions say its people didn't perish, but ascended, shifting their vibration to exist beyond the physical plane. Others believe they retreated deep beneath the ice, maintaining their wisdom in hidden cities like the legendary Thule. The most compelling theory, Hyperborea wasn't destroyed by ice, but by a pole shift, a sudden tilting of Earth's axis that plunged their paradise into endless winter overnight. If true, it raises a spine-tingling possibility. The same cataclysm that erased them could one day reveal their ruins, as melting polar ice uncovers what's been buried for millennia. Perhaps that's why the myth endures, not as nostalgia, but as a mirror. Hyperborea represents the zenith of what humanity could be, a society in perfect alignment with cosmic law, where technology served spirit, not the other way around. In an age of climate upheaval and spiritual hunger, its story feels less like ancient history and more like a prophecy. The Greeks believed Apollo returned to Hyperborea every 19 years to renew its magic. Maybe we're the ones overdue for a pilgrimage not northward on a map, but inward, to the untouched brilliance we've buried beneath our own frost. Buried within the ancient Sanskrit epics of India lies evidence of a civilization so advanced, its existence shatters our modern timeline of human progress. The Mahabharata and Ramayana don't just recount mythical battles, they document a society that mastered flight, harnessed energy beyond atomic power, and waged wars with weapons eerily mirroring modern nuclear devastation. Consider this passage from the Mahabharata, a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe, an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns rose in its brilliance. The description doesn't just resemble a poetic metaphor, it mirrors eyewitness accounts of atomic detonations with chilling precision. The vimanas described in these texts weren't primitive chariots of the gods, but sophisticated aerial vehicles with detailed technical manuals. The Vaimanika Shastra, an ancient Sanskrit manuscript recovered in the early 20th century, outlines flight principles, propulsion systems, and even anti-gravity technology using mercury vortex engines, concepts mainstream science wouldn't explore until centuries later. Skeptics dismiss these as fantasy, but how do we explain temple carvings across India depicting sleek, cockpit-like structures with intricate instrumentation, or the discovery of fused green glass in Rajasthan's deserts identical to the trinitite formed during nuclear tests in New Mexico? Perhaps the most haunting evidence lies in the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, where skeletal remains show radiation levels exceeding natural background traces, scattered in poses suggesting instantaneous, catastrophic death. The city's layout reveals streets and buildings reduced to vitrified stone, a phenomenon requiring temperatures only achievable through extreme thermal events. Local folklore speaks of a sky-born fire that annihilated the city, sparing no survivors. When you line up the archaeological anomalies with the texts, a terrifying narrative emerges. The Rama Empire may have fallen not to invasion or decay, but but to the same existential threat we grapple with today, the weaponization of unfathomable power. What modern historians label as mythology starts to unravel under scrutiny. The Mahabharata describes star maps with planetary detail impossible for ancient astronomers to observe without advanced optics, surgical procedures matching contemporary techniques, and even references to cloning and genetic manipulation. These aren't the fever dreams of primitive storytellers. They're fragments of a technological lexicon, preserved in verse because no other medium could survive the ages. The real mystery isn't whether the Rama Empire existed, but why we refuse to acknowledge that their warnings etched in radioactive ruins and epic poetry were meant for us. Their legacy isn't just in the past, it's a reflection of the crossroads we stand at now, holding tools of creation and destruction in the same trembling hands. The pyramids of Giza may be Egypt's most iconic landmarks, but they're merely the surface layer of a mystery stretching back to a time before recorded history, a golden age the ancients called Zep Tepi, the first time. According to temple inscriptions and the writings of high priests like Manetho, this wasn't just a mythical epoch, but a tangible era when gods walked among humans, imparting knowledge so profound it would shape civilization for millennia. Mainstream Egyptology dismisses Zep Tepi as allegory, but what if the truth is hidden in plain sight, etched into the very stones modern tourists casually photograph? Take the Great Sphinx. Most guides will tell you it was carved around 2500 BCE during Pharaoh Khufu's reign, but geological evidence tells a different story. The Sphinx's body bears deep vertical erosion patterns, weathering consistent not with wind and sand, but with prolonged exposure to heavy rainfall. The last time Egypt experienced such precipitation was over 7,000 years ago, during the Neolithic subpluvial, a period when the Sahara was a lush savanna. This means the Sphinx could be twice as old as academia claims, a relic from a forgotten civilization that thrived long before dynastic Egypt. Even more striking, the Sphinx Temple and Valley Temple beside it are built from limestone blocks weighing hundreds of tons, some showing clear signs of machining precise cuts and drill holes that suggest technology beyond copper chisels and stone hammers. The implications ripple outward. The pyramid texts inscribed on tomb walls 5,000 years ago speak of a sacred science inherited from the followers of Horus, a group of enlightened beings who ruled during Zep Tepi. These texts describe advanced astronomical knowledge, including the precession of the equinoxes, a celestial cycle that takes 26,000 years to complete. How could a Bronze Age culture comprehend such complex cosmology without telescopes or mathematics? Unless, of course, unless they were custodians of wisdom passed down from an earlier, far more sophisticated society. Edgar Case's controversial readings add another layer. He described a hall of records buried beneath the Sphinx's paws, a vast library containing the archived knowledge of Atlantis and Lemuria, sealed away until humanity evolved enough to wield it responsibly. Modern ground-penetrating radar has indeed revealed anomalous chambers beneath the Sphinx complex, though political and academic resistance has stalled full excavation. The parallels are impossible to ignore. Just as the Vatican guards its secret archives, could Egypt's priesthood have preserved fragments of a lost world's understanding, embedding it in sacred geometry and initiation rites? The Osirian at Abydos offers another clue. This subterranean structure, dated far earlier than the temple above it, features megalithic architecture eerily similar to Peru's Sacsayhuaman Massive, interlocking stones that defy conventional construction methods. The Osirians' alignment with the constellation Orion mirrors the Giza pyramids, suggesting a shared blueprint across continents and epochs. Even the word Abydos derives from the ancient term Abju, meaning the hill of the symbol or relic, hinting at its role as a repository for pre-dynastic secrets. Perhaps the most compelling evidence lies in the dendrolite. A bas-relief in the Hathor Temple depicts what appears to be a giant light bulb with a snaking filament connected to a battery-like object by cables. Engineers who have recreated the design using period-accurate materials found it could indeed produce light when filled with an electrolyte solution. If this isn't just symbolic artistry, but a technical diagram, it rewrites our understanding of ancient innovation. Combine this with the Baghdad batteries discovered in Mesopotamia, and a pattern emerges. Our ancestors may have harnessed energies we've only rediscovered in the last century. The real question isn't whether Egypt inherited knowledge from an older civilization. It's why we resist the idea so fiercely. Could it be that acknowledging Zep Tepi forces us to confront the fragility of our own epoch? Every obelisk, every hieroglyph, every precisely aligned corridor whispers the same truth. Greatness isn't measured by how high we build, but by how deeply we remember. And somewhere beneath the sands, an older story waits, not as a relic, but as a reminder that the keys to our future have always been buried in the past. Beneath the towering monuments and golden sands of Egypt flows an underground river of wisdom, one that didn't vanish with the pharaohs, but seeped into the very foundations of Western mysticism. At the heart of this legacy stands Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe of the gods, known to the Greeks as Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great sage who allegedly penned the Emerald Tablet, a single page of cryptic text that would become the Rosetta Stone of alchemy, astrology, and occult philosophy for centuries to come. The ancients didn't just worship Thoth as a deity. They revered him as the architect of civilization itself, the being who gifted humanity writing, mathematics, and the sacred art of transmutation, not of lead into gold, but of the soul into light. The Emerald Tablet's most famous axiom, as above, so below, isn't just poetic symmetry. It's the master key to Hermeticism, the secret science that birthed everything from Renaissance magic to modern quantum physics. Picture this: a young Isaac Newton, famed for his laws of motion, secretly spending decades obsessing over the tablet's verses, translating them line by line in coded manuscripts. Why would the father of rational science chase an ancient Egyptian relic? Because he recognized what the mystery schools of Alexandria had guarded for millennia, that Thoth's teachings weren't mythology, but a coded manual of cosmic laws. The tablet's phrases about the sun being its father, the moon its mother, mirror the alchemical wedding of opposites, the same dualities we now see in particle physics, wave-particle duality, or the interplay of energy and matter. The linkage between Egypt and Western esotericism isn't speculative, it's etched in history's margins. When Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, he didn't just claim its land, he absorbed its wisdom, building the Great Library of Alexandria as a beacon for initiates. There, Greek philosophers like Pythagoras studied alongside Egyptian priests, merging Thoth's teachings with Platonic ideals. Fast forward to medieval Europe, where Moorish scholars preserved Hermetic texts like the Corpus Hermeticum, igniting the flame of the Renaissance. Figures like Marsilio Ficino and Paracelsus didn't just read these works, they lived them, treating medicine, astronomy, and spirituality as branches of the same sacred tree Thoth had planted. Even the symbols of modern Freemasonry, the pyramid, the all-seeing eye, are silent nods to their Egyptian roots. But here's the twist: the Emerald Tablet and Hermetic writings weren't meant to be mere philosophy. They were practical technologies of consciousness. The mystery schools of Heliopolis and Thebes didn't teach beliefs, they orchestrated experiences. Initiates underwent rituals in pitch-black chambers, emerged at dawn to greet the solar disk, and ingested psychoactive Kai-Fi incense to induce visionary states. These weren't superstitions. They were rigorous experiments in altering perception, akin to modern sensory deprivation or psychedelic therapy. The Dendera temple's zodiac ceiling or the alignment of Karnak's halls with Sirius weren't just artistic choices. They were resonant maps designed to attune the human mind to celestial frequencies. The most compelling proof of Thoth's enduring influence lies in the shadows of modern science. Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity echoes Hermetic correspondence theory. Nikola Tesla's obsession with vibration and energy mirrors the Emerald Tablet's insistence that all things are born from vibration. Even the digital age carries his imprint. Thoth, patron of writing, would smirk at humanity, communicating through hieroglyphs of ones and zeros. The real question isn't whether Hermeticism shaped our world, but why its origins were so meticulously obscured. Perhaps because, as the tablet warns, the power of magic is dissolved by the profane. Some truths aren't lost, they're hidden in plain sight, waiting for those ready to see the golden thread connecting an ibis-headed god in the desert to the glow of your smartphone screen. This isn't about dusty scrolls or forgotten rituals. It's about recognizing that the pulse of ancient Egypt still beats beneath the surface of our supposedly rational age. Every time a scientist seeks a unified field theory, an artist channels creative inspiration, or a meditator touches the infinite, they're walking the path Thoth laid down not as a relic, but as a living current. The mystery schools may lie in ruins, but their curriculum never closed. The real initiation begins when we realize we've been students all along, buried in the baked clay tablets of ancient Sumer. A story older than the pyramids themselves whispers of beings who descended from the heavens, not as metaphors, but as flesh and blood architects of humanity. The Anunnaki, meaning those who from heaven to earth came, weren't just deities in the Mesopotamian pantheon. According to Zecharia Sitchin's controversial translations of the Enuma Elish and other cuneiform texts, they were interstellar visitors from a rogue planet called Nibiru, genetic engineers who molded Homo sapiens from primitive hominids as a workforce to mine gold. Skeptics dismiss his work as fringe fantasy, but when you line up the Sumerian king lists, which document reigns spanning tens of thousands of years, with modern discoveries in genetic manipulation, the narrative starts to fray the edges of conventional history. Take Eridu, considered the first city ever built, according to Sumerian tradition. Modern excavations reveal it wasn't just a settlement, but a meticulously planned complex with a towering ziggurat dedicated to Enki, the Anunnaki god of wisdom. The texts describe Enki's House of the Aquifer as more than a temple. It was a biological laboratory where the divine formulas for civilization were stored. Sitchin interpreted these as genetic codes, pointing to passages where Enki and his sister Ninhursag spliced their own DNA with that of early humans, creating Adamu, the first modern human. It's a story that mirrors modern CRISPR technology with unsettling precision. How could a Bronze Age culture conceive of such sophisticated science unless they were recording, not inventing, what they'd witnessed? The real shockwave comes when you cross-reference Sumerian astronomy with contemporary discoveries. Their descriptions of Nibiru's elongated orbit, appearing every 3,600 years, align eerily with modern hypotheses about Planet 9, a hypothetical body perturbing orbits in our solar system's outer reaches. Even more compelling are the gold processing references. The Anunnaki's purported need for gold to repair Nibiru's atmosphere mirrors today's scientific exploration of monoatomic gold's superconductive properties. Coincidence? Perhaps. But when cultures separated by oceans like the pre-Incan myths of Viracocha or the Dogon tribe's Sirius lore share nearly identical narratives of star-born teachers, the pattern becomes harder to ignore. Sitchin's detractors argue he took poetic license with translations, yet even mainstream archaeology concedes Sumer's sudden emergence around 6,000 years ago defies explanation. One day, there were hunter-gatherers. The next, a society with advanced mathematics, astronomy, and law codes like the Code of Ur-Nammu. The Sumerians themselves claimed their knowledge came directly from the Anunnaki, whom they depicted wearing wristwatches and carrying what looked like handheld devices. The Baghdad Battery, a 2,000-year-old artifact capable of generating electric current, suggests they might not have been exaggerating. Eridu's spiritual significance runs deeper than its physical ruins. It was the place of the mighty bond, where heaven and earth intersected, a concept echoed in Jacob's Ladder or the Hindu Axis Mundi. The Anunnaki didn't just teach agriculture and writing. They implanted something far more profound, a hunger for the divine coded into our very cells. That's why their legacy endures, not just in dusty tablets, but in the collective yearning for contact, the pervasive sense that we're not alone, and the whispered conviction that our origins are written not in history books, but in the stars. Maybe the question isn't whether Sitchin was right, but why his interpretation resonates so deeply in an age where science fiction and science fact are converging faster than ever. Among the most enigmatic figures in Sumerian lore stand the Apkallu 7 sages, who emerged from the Erythraean Sea, bearing knowledge so potent it was said to blur the line between mortal and divine. These weren't just wise men, they were hybrid beings, described in cuneiform texts as part fish, part human, who served as intermediaries between the Anunnaki and early humanity. The Babylonian Uruk list of kings and sages pairs each Apkallu with an antediluvian ruler, claiming they taught agriculture, law, and the forbidden arts of architecture, astrology, and even the manipulation of life itself. But here's what the sanitized translations omit. These sages were considered dangerous. Their wisdom wasn't just gifted, it was stolen, spirited away from the gods' exclusive domain, and implanted into human consciousness, an act that some texts imply triggered the Great Flood as divine retribution. The parallels to other traditions are uncanny. The Apkallu's narrative mirrors the Watchers of the Book of Enoch fallen angels, who, according to Judaic texts, descended to earth, took human wives, and birthed the Nephilim, a race of giants whose hybrid knowledge corrupted the world. Both stories share a chilling through-line. Civilization's greatest leaps forward came not through slow evolution, but through intervention beings from beyond gifting humanity tools that outpaced our spiritual maturity. The Apkallu's fish-like appearance even resurfaces in the Dogon tribe's Namo amphibious entities, who brought advanced astronomy from Sirius, and in the Ons of Babylonian myth, who emerged from the Persian Gulf to teach writing and science. These aren't isolated myths, they're fragments of a global memory, a warning etched across cultures about the perils of unearned enlightenment. Modern excavations at Nineveh's library revealed something startling: medical tablets detailing surgeries and herbal remedies attributed to the Apkallu, including procedures for cataract removal and bone setting, techniques Europe wouldn't rediscover for millennia. Even more provocative are the sacred clay tablets, listing over 100 divine decrees governing everything from kingship to sexual intercourse, which the Apkallu allegedly smuggled to humanity. Some researchers suggest these weren't moral codes, but raw data of biogenetic or quantum principles encoded in myth. The Adapa myth, where the sages offered the bread and water of immortality, but refuses it on Enki's advice, reads less like folklore and more like an allegory for withheld technology or suppressed human potential. The Apkallu's legacy isn't confined to antiquity. Their symbolic resurgence in Freemasonry's 7 liberal arts and Renaissance alchemy's pursuit of the philosopher's stone hints at an unbroken thread of esoteric transmission. Even the Vatican's secret archives reportedly house medieval manuscripts referencing Piscine sages who preserved antediluvian secrets in subterranean vaults. Whether literal or metaphorical, their story forces a haunting question: What if humanity's oldest gods weren't deities at all, but custodians of a science so advanced it became indistinguishable from magic, and we, their unwitting inheritors, are still grappling with the consequences of that stolen fire? The Apkallu didn't just teach, they altered our trajectory, embedding a hunger for the forbidden that still drives us to reach beyond our grasp, for better or worse. When the Maya looked to the stars, they weren't just tracking time, they were mapping a cosmic conversation. Their long count calendar, often reduced to sensationalized doomsday predictions about 2012, was never meant to mark an ending, but a synchronization point, a celestial alignment so precise, it acted as a tuning fork for the entire solar system. At the heart of this system stood Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god, whose dual nature, earth and sky, serpent and bird, mirrored the Maya's understanding of reality itself, a dance between matter and consciousness. The temples of Chichen Itza weren't just monuments, they were resonant chambers designed to amplify this frequency. During equinoxes, sunlight slithers down the pyramid steps like a serpent of light, merging with the shadows below, an architectural metaphor for the very union of cosmic and earthly realms that the calendar was built to herald. The true shock of 2012 wasn't what happened, it's what we missed. Mainstream narratives fixated on cataclysm, but Mayan elders and preserved Dresden Codex texts tell a different story. The end of the 13th Bacton cycle signaled a shift in galactic alignment, a moment when our solar system crossed the dark rift at the center of the Milky Way, a region the Maya called Xibalba, the road to the underworld. But underworld didn't imply destruction. It signified the void where creation begins. Modern astronomers now recognize this same region as the galactic center, a supermassive black hole emitting electromagnetic frequencies that influence planetary energies. The Maya didn't just predict this alignment, they encoded its spiritual implications, a doorway for collective awakening, a recalibration of human consciousness to a higher bandwidth. Kukulkan's legacy goes deeper than temple carvings. The Popol Vuh, the Maya's sacred text, describes the god as a bridge between dimensions, a teacher who brought not just corn and calendars, but the science of vibrational upliftment. His serpentine form mirrors the Kundalini energy of Vedic traditions, while his avian aspect echoes the Egyptian Bennu bird, symbols of ascension recurring across cultures. The pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza isn't just a calendar in stone. It's a geometric cipher, with 91 steps on each of its 4 sides, plus the top platform totaling 365. It encodes Earth's solar cycle, but its acoustics reveal an even stranger secret. Clap at its base, and the echo returns as the chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird, a sonic illusion proving the Maya engineered their structures to manipulate sound frequencies, perhaps to induce altered states during rituals. The 2012 phenomenon wasn't a failed prophecy, it was a misinterpreted invitation. Mayan daykeepers like Don Alejandro Cirillo Oxlage Paris insist the date marked the start of a new sun, a 26,000-year cycle where humanity would have the chance to ascend from material obsession to galactic citizenship. The chaos we've witnessed since climate upheaval, societal fractures mirrors the Maya's concept of cleansing fire, not as literal destruction, but as the necessary dissolution of outdated systems to make way for a consciousness rooted in unity and cosmic awareness. Their calendars' precision calculating Venus orbit to within 2 hours over 500 years wasn't just astronomical prowess. It reflected their belief that time wasn't linear, but fractal, with each cycle embedding the potential for collective evolution. Perhaps the most haunting evidence of the Maya's galactic vision lies in their obsession with Pleiades. Temples at Palenque and Uxmal align with the cluster's heliacal rising, and the Dresden Codex contains star charts tracking its movements with eerie precision. Their legends say the Pleiadians, or star ancestors, seeded Earth's civilizations, a narrative mirrored in Hopi, Aboriginal, and Japanese traditions. Modern satellite data reveals something startling. The Maya built their cities along an invisible grid, mirroring the Pleiades' celestial arrangement, as if mapping starlight onto land. When you realize their calendar didn't just measure days, but harmonized human awareness with these interstellar rhythms, the question shifts from, did the Maya predict the future? To, were they decoding a cosmic curriculum we're only now beginning to comprehend? The whispers of Kukulkan still echo not in the ruins, but in the synchronicities of our era, the resurgence of sound healing, the physics of vibrational reality, even the global push toward renewable energy, as if remembering our bond with the sun. The Maya didn't vanish. Their wisdom went dormant, waiting for a generation ready to read the calendar not as a countdown, but as a compass pointing not to the end of the world, but to the beginning of how we perceive it. High above the jungle floor, within the temple of the inscriptions at Palenque, lies a stone coffin lid that has ignited debates for generations. The sarcophagus of Pakal the Great, ruler of the Maya city-state during its 7th century golden age, is carved with an image so startlingly modern, it seems to defy its ancient origin. At first glance, the central figure appears to be Pakal himself, yet his posture is anything but regal. He leans backward, hands manipulating unseen controls, his body nestled within what looks unmistakably like a mechanical framework, complete with flames or exhaust streaming from the base. To some, this isn't a funerary scene, it's a launch sequence. Mainstream archaeologists interpret the carving through a spiritual lens, arguing it depicts Pakal's descent into Xibalba, the Maya underworld, surrounded by the world tree and celestial serpents. But the details chafe against traditional explanations. The tree sprouts what resemble thrusters or machinery, while the serpents coil in precise, geometric patterns reminiscent of circuitry. Even more compelling, the positioning of Pakal's fingers, which mirror the grip of a pilot adjusting controls, and the fact that his vehicle aligns almost perfectly with mid-century illustrations of early spacecraft. The resemblance is so uncanny, Soviet scientists analyzing the image during the space race reportedly used it as a reference for cockpit designs, a historical footnote that blurs the line between coincidence and revelation. The Pleiadian connection deepens when you examine Pakal's funerary artifacts. His jade death mask, crafted with otherworldly precision, bears striations that mirror the electromagnetic bands of the Pleiades star cluster, a pattern repeated in the temple's murals. Maya texts describe the ruler as a star walker, a title reserved for those who commune directly with the Chakak, the celestial serpent stars we now call Pleiades. Local lore whispers that Pakal didn't just worship these beings, he descended from them, returning to the stars at death. The temple itself reinforces this narrative. Its 9-tiered pyramid corresponds to the 9 levels of the Maya underworld, but its alignment with Pleiadian risings suggests it may have also functioned as a beacon or landing marker. Modern researchers have uncovered even stranger clues. The sarcophagus lid's dimensions encode mathematical ratios found in harmonic resonance technology, while traces of cinnabar, a mercury-based pigment, on Pakal's remains hint at knowledge of conductive materials used in propulsion systems. Most haunting of all is the ruler's skeletal analysis, which revealed deformities consistent with prolonged radiation exposure, as well as a cranial modification that eerily resembles the elongated skulls of Paracus, Peru, a trait some associate with hybrid or extraterrestrial lineage. Whether Pakal's sarcophagus depicts a spaceship or a symbolic journey may never be settled, but the carving's true power lies in its ambiguity, its ability to straddle myth and machine, past and future. In an age where astronauts train in zero gravity and quantum physics echoes ancient cosmologies, the lid forces us to ask, did the Maya witness something we're only now rediscovering? Or did they, like so many lost civilizations, inherit fragments of a science so advanced it could only be expressed as magic? The answer might not be carved in stone, but it's certainly hidden in plain sight. In the scorching cliffs of Mali's Bandiagara escarpment, the Dogon people have guarded a secret that defies every assumption about ancient astronomy. For generations, their oral traditions spoke of a tiny, dense star orbiting Sirius, the brightest star in our sky centuries before modern telescopes confirmed its existence. They called it Potolo, a name derived from the smallest known seed, describing a celestial body so massive and compact, its gravitational pull distorted the orbit of its larger companion. The staggering part, Sirius B, the white dwarf companion to Sirius A, wasn't visible to the human eye until 1862, when astronomer Alvin Clark first observed it through a refracting telescope. Yet the Dogon not only knew of its existence, they mapped its 50-year elliptical orbit and described its composition as heavier than all the iron on Earth, a detail matching modern astrophysics classification of white dwarfs as degenerate matter. How could a remote African tribe, untouched by modern technology, possess knowledge that eluded Galileo and Newton? The answer might lie in their creation myth, a story so bizarre it echoes through the annals of fringe archaeology and mainstream skepticism alike. The Dogon recount that their astronomical wisdom came from the Namo amphibious beings who descended from the Sirius system in a spinning arc wreathed in fire. These visitors, described as part fish, part human, supposedly gifted the Dogon with advanced knowledge before retreating to the waters of the Niger River. Skeptics dismiss the tale as mythologized contact with European missionaries, but the details unravel under scrutiny. French anthropologist Marcel Graillot recorded these accounts in the 1930s, decades before Sirius B's density was confirmed. Even more perplexing, Dogon elder Augot merely described a third star in the Sirius system, Mye, which some astronomers now speculate could correspond to the hypothesized Sirius C, a red dwarf still under investigation. The Dogon's celestial insight isn't isolated. Their cosmology aligns eerily with other ancient traditions the Babylonian Ons, the Sumerian Apkallu, even the Hindu Matsya Avatar, all fish-like teachers who brought civilization from the waters. The Dogon's ceremonial masks, carved with intricate double helix patterns, hint at an understanding of DNA's structure, while their granaries symbolize the orbital dynamics of Sirius's stars. Mainstream scholars argue these parallels are coincidental, the result of cultural diffusion, or Graillot's leading questions. But when you examine the precision of Dogon star maps, their division of time into Sigui cycles matching Sirius B's orbital period, it's harder to dismiss as mere folklore. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in the Dogon's description of the Namo's arrival. They spoke of a vibrating sound that shook the earth as the ark descended, a detail mirroring modern accounts of UFO propulsion. Their cave paintings depict figures with elongated skulls and torsos fused to fishtails, resembling the amphibious gods of Mesoamerica and Mesopotamia. Even their word for the Namo's vessel, Aduno, so translates to the spinning egg, a phrase uncannily similar to descriptions of levitating vimanas in Sanskrit texts or Ezekiel's wheeled throne in the Bible. The Dogon mystery forces a reckoning. Either their ancestors developed an impossibly advanced understanding of astrophysics through naked eye observation, or someone or something handed them the stars on a platter. The implications ripple beyond Mali. If the Namo were real, their legacy lingers not just in Dogon rituals, but in the universal archetype of the fish god, the teacher from the deep who emerges when humanity is ready to evolve. Sirius B's discovery may have cracked open modern astronomy, but the Dogon's knowledge cracks opened something far more profound, the possibility that our skies were once a highway, and that the keepers of cosmic truth might still be waiting beneath the waves. Beneath the windswept hills of southeastern Turkey lies a mystery so profound it shatters everything we thought we knew about human civilization. Göbekli Tepe isn't just another archaeological site. It's a time capsule from 12,000 years ago, a sprawling complex of massive stone pillars carved with intricate animals and symbols, predating Stonehenge by 6 millennia and the pyramids by 7. This isn't merely old, it's impossibly ancient, built at a time when mainstream history insists humans were simple hunter-gatherers, barely scraping together survival. Yet here stood a temple so advanced, so deliberately constructed, it forces us to rewrite the entire narrative of human progress. The question isn't just how they built it, but why. And why did they bury it so carefully, as if hiding a secret too dangerous to leave exposed? The pillars themselves are a gallery of forgotten symbolism. Towering limestone monoliths shaped like giant T's, some weighing over 16 tons, are adorned with bas-reliefs of foxes, scorpions, and vultures in mid-motion, their craftsmanship rivaling artistry from far later periods. Even more startling is the layout, concentric rings of these pillars, arranged with precise geometric alignment, their positions mirroring constellations or terrestrial landmarks we no longer understand. Archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, who first excavated the site, argued this wasn't a settlement, it was a ceremonial ground, a spiritual epicenter where nomadic tribes gathered for rituals we can only guess at. The absence of domestic debris, no cooking fires, no housing, suggests something extraordinary. Göbekli Tepe wasn't built for survival, it was built for worship. But the real enigma is its deliberate burial. Around 8000 BCE, someone took pains to meticulously cover the entire complex under thousands of tons of earth, preserving it like a sacred time capsule. This wasn't an act of destruction, but of preservation, as if the builders knew future generations would need its message. Some researchers speculate the burial coincided with the Younger Dryas period, a time of catastrophic climate upheaval. Could Göbekli Tepe have been an ark of knowledge, sealed away to survive a global reset? The symbolism of the carvings hints at celestial events. The vultures, often associated with soul transportation in ancient Anatolian cultures, suggest a preoccupation with cycles of death and rebirth. Perhaps the site was a memory temple designed to encode wisdom for a post-cataclysm world. Modern ground-penetrating radar reveals even more unsettling truths. Göbekli Tepe's known structures are just the tip of the iceberg. At least 20 more rings lie buried, their purpose still unknown. The sophistication of its construction, pillars fitted into sockets, floors polished to smooth perfection, implies a level of communal organization that contradicts everything we know about pre-agricultural societies. Unless, of course, our timeline is wrong. Could Göbekli Tepe be the remnant of an even older civilization, one that flourished before the last ice age? The site's alignment with the Cygnus constellation and its emphasis on animal symbols found in later shamanic traditions suggest it might have been a university of the unseen, a place where initiates learned to navigate both the physical and spiritual worlds. What makes Göbekli Tepe truly revolutionary isn't just its age, but its implication that spirituality, not survival, might have been the catalyst for human civilization. The Standard Model insists agriculture came first, enabling settled communities to build monuments, but here, the temple predates farming by thousands of years. Was religion the spark that compelled nomads to organize, to quarry stones, to dream bigger than their next meal? The site's burial adds another layer. Whoever interred it understood that some truths are too potent to leave unguarded. In an age where we're just beginning to rediscover the power of sacred sites and earth energies, Göbekli Tepe stands as both a warning and an invitation that the seeds of our past might still hold the keys to our future. Among the towering pillars of Göbekli Tepe, one stone stands out as a puzzle wrapped in ancient prophecy, the vulture stone. Carved with a mesmerizing array of animals and celestial symbols, this massive slab doesn't just depict wildlife, it seems to map the very sky above us. At first glance, the vultures, scorpions, and birds appear to be part of a shamanic vision, but when researchers lined up the carvings with astronomical charts, they uncovered something startling. The positions of the animals match constellations as they would have appeared over 11,000 years ago, with the vulture representing Cygnus, the bird symbolizing Sagittarius, and the scorpion mirroring Scorpius. But it's the cluster of small, round shapes near the bird's wing that sent chills down the spines of archaeologists, a possible depiction of a swarm of comets streaking toward Earth. This wasn't just an artist's imagination. The timeline aligns eerily with the Younger Dryas period, a sudden and catastrophic climate shift around 12,800 years ago that plunged the planet into a mini ice age. Geological evidence points to a possible extraterrestrial trigger, a comet or asteroid impact so massive it ignited wildfires across continents, melted ice sheets, and triggered global flooding. The vulture stone's comet symbols aren't isolated. Similar carvings appear on other pillars, some showing human figures in distress beneath falling celestial objects. Could Göbekli Tepe's builders have witnessed this cataclysm, or worse, anticipated its return? The implications ripple far beyond archaeology. The Younger Dryas event coincides with the sudden extinction of megafauna, like mammoths and saber-toothed cats, as well as the disappearance of advanced prehistoric cultures, such as the Clovis people in North America. Mainstream science has long debated the cause, but the vulture stone offers a haunting possibility that Göbekli Tepe was less a temple and more a warning. The precision of its carvings suggests a deep understanding of celestial cycles, possibly passed down from an even older civilization that barely survived the impacts. Some researchers speculate the site's deliberate burial wasn't just ritual, it was an attempt to preserve knowledge for future survivors. What makes this theory even more compelling are the parallels in other ancient traditions. The Egyptian Edfu texts speak of a homeland of the primeval ones, destroyed by fire from the sky. The Hopi recount a blue star that brought devastation, while Plato's account of Atlantis describes a civilization sunk beneath the waves after the gods punished them. Even the Bible's great flood narrative takes on new meaning when viewed through the lens of comet-induced climate chaos. The vulture stone might be the missing link, a Rosetta Stone of prehistoric disaster myths encoded in stone instead of words. The real mystery isn't just whether Göbekli Tepe's builders predicted catastrophe, it's why they went to such lengths to immortalize it. Were they survivors of an earlier advanced culture, etching their trauma into stone to ensure we wouldn't repeat their mistakes? Or were they prophets, using celestial alignments to foresee a cycle of destruction that still looms over us? As modern astronomy tracks near-Earth objects with increasing urgency, the vulture stone's message feels less like ancient history and more like a cautionary tale echoing across millennia. The past isn't just buried beneath those hills, it's waiting for us to decipher its warning before the next sky fire falls. Easter Island's silent stone sentinels, the Moai, stand with their backs to the sea, their hollow eyes gazing inland as if guarding a secret too vast to speak. But the Rapa Nui people, the island's indigenous inhabitants, whisper of a time before these statues, when their ancestors came from a land now lost beneath the waves. They call this place Hiva, a fertile paradise swallowed by the ocean in a cataclysm so profound, its memory lives on in oral traditions passed down through generations. The stories tell of a great migration, of fleeing from Hiva's sinking shores to the safety of Rapa Nui's volcanic cliffs, And here's where it gets fascinating. These legends align uncannily with geological evidence of submerged landmasses in the Pacific, like the lost continent of Mu, echoing the same narrative of a drowned homeland found in Lemurian lore across Polynesia. The moai themselves are far more than just stone faces. Rapa Nui elders speak of the statues as Eringa Aura, living faces imbued with mana, a spiritual energy that could be harnessed to stabilize the land and its people. Modern researchers using ground scanning technology have discovered something startling. The moai aren't isolated monuments. They're connected by an invisible network of subterranean pathways, channels carved into the volcanic rock that seem to mirror ley lines or energy grids found at other sacred sites like Stonehenge or the Nazca Line. Even more intriguing, many of the statues are positioned atop natural aquifers, their bases interacting with underground water flows in a way that suggests they functioned as resonant chambers, amplifying and directing energy across the island. Then there's the eerie precision of their construction. The moai's elongated heads and angular features bear a striking resemblance to megalithic figures found in Bolivia's Puma Punku and even ancient Olmec sculptures in Mexico, cultures separated by thousands of miles of ocean. Their distinctive red stone pukao, or topknots, mirror the headgear of statues in Japan's Jomon period, while their posture, arms rigid at their sides, hands resting on hips, mirrors the tiki figures of Hawaii. These aren't random similarities. They're fingerprints of a shared architectural language, one that hints at a lost maritime civilization or a forgotten network of seafaring builders. But the deepest mystery lies in how these multi-ton giants were moved. Mainstream theories suggest the statues were walked upright using ropes, a method demonstrated in modern experiments. Yet Rapa Nui oral history tells a different story. The moai walked themselves, guided by priests who wielded the mana of their ancestors. Sounds like myth until you consider the island's own name. Before European contact, the Rapa Nui called their home Te Pito o Te Henua, the navel of the world. This isn't poetic hyperbole. Magnetic surveys reveal anomalies around the moai platforms, areas where the Earth's electromagnetic field fluctuates in ways that align with ceremonial sites worldwide. Could the statues have been navigated not just by physical labor, but by manipulating the very energies of the land itself? The collapse of Rapa Nui's society adds another layer to the enigma. Popular narratives blame ecological destruction, the chopping down of palm forests to transport moai, but recent pollen studies suggest the deforestation was gradual, not catastrophic. Some researchers propose an alternative, that the island's downfall came from a spiritual imbalance, a severing of the connection between the people and the mana, their ancestors encoded in the stones. When Europeans arrived, they found many moai toppled, their faces buried in the earth, as if shielding their knowledge from profane eyes. Yet the Rapa Nui never stopped believing. To this day, elders speak of Hiva not as a myth, but as a living memory, a homeland that didn't vanish, but transformed, sinking into the ocean's embrace to await the day its children remember how to call it back. What if the moai aren't relics of a dead culture, but silent teachers? Their placement along the coast, facing inward, suggests a protective function not against invaders, but against something far older, the forgetting of who we are. In a world racing toward the next technological breakthrough, their message whispers across the ages. True power lies not in domination, but in harmony. The stones don't just guard Easter Island. They guard a truth we're only beginning to reclaim. Deep in the mist-shrouded peaks of the Kunlun Mountains, Chinese folklore whispers of a paradise untouched by time, Shangri-La, a hidden valley where immortal sages walk among crystal rivers and peach trees that bear fruit once every 3,000 years. This isn't just poetic fantasy. The Taoist texts of the Han Dynasty describe Pinglai, a mythical mountain city where the Zayan, or immortals, mastered the alchemy of eternal life through breathing techniques, herbal elixirs, and the cultivation of Kai, the vital energy that flows through all things. These sages weren't mere hermits. They were said to govern the very forces of nature, commanding storms with a gesture and riding clouds like chariots. The Tang Emperor Wu Zetian even launched expeditions to find Pinglai, convinced its secrets could secure her dynasty's immortality. Yet the most startling threads of Chinese legend aren't confined to mountains. They slither through the bloodstream of emperors themselves. The Yellow Emperor, Huangdi, revered as the progenitor of Chinese civilization, wasn't just a ruler, he was a bridge between worlds. Ancient texts claim he descended from the heavens on the back of a dragon, and at the end of his reign, he ascended to the stars in the same manner, leaving behind only his cloak. This wasn't symbolic allegory to the Zhou and Qin dynasties. It was literal genealogy. Emperors wore robes embroidered with 5 clawed dragons, not as decoration, but as a declaration of divine lineage. The dragon wasn't a mythical beast to them. It was an ancestral spirit, a manifestation of cosmic power intertwined with the mandate of heaven. The parallels between Taoist immortal lore and the emperor's dragon bloodlines reveal a startling pattern. Both traditions hinge on the idea of Shen, or spiritual potency, accumulated through righteous rule or spiritual practice. Just as the Zion could shapeshift and traverse dimensions, so too could dragons, entities described in the classic of mountains and seas as capable of shrinking to the size of a silkworm or expanding to fill the sky. The Forbidden City's architecture reflects this duality. Its winding canals weren't just for aesthetics. They were designed to mimic the celestial dragon's path across the heavens, channeling cosmic energy into the emperor's throne. Even today, Feng Shui masters speak of dragon lines, ley lines of Kai that crisscross the earth, with the strongest converging beneath imperial palaces. The most tantalizing clue to these mysteries lies in the Jiuzhang Suanchu, an ancient mathematical text containing star maps so precise they chart planetary movements modern telescopes only confirmed centuries later. How could a civilization without advanced optics achieve this? Taoist priests attributed such knowledge to the dragon kings, celestial beings who ruled the 4 seas and whispered secrets to those who meditated in sacred caves. The emperors, in turn, claimed these dragons as kin, using their divine right to justify everything from tax policies to warfare. It's no coincidence that the dragon symbolized not just power, but balance, the same equilibrium the Zion sought in their alchemical pursuits. What if the legends hold a suppressed truth? The Shanhai Jing, a 2,000-year-old bestiary, describes hybrid beings, the dragon-human hybrids, who ruled pre-flood civilizations. Recent excavations near the Yangtze River have unearthed elongated skulls and jade artifacts carved with serpentine deities, while the Liangzhu culture's 5,000-year-old pyramids align with Orion's belt in the same configuration as the Giza Plateau. The dragon wasn't just a mythic mascot. It may have been the cultural memory of an advanced lineage, one that wielded spiritual and scientific knowledge lost in the collapse of a forgotten golden age. The emperors are gone, but the dragons remain etched into temple walls, woven into New Year's parades, and humming beneath the soil in veins of ley energy. Perhaps Shangri-La was never meant to be found, because it wasn't a place at all, but a state of being. The Taoists knew immortality isn't about cheating death. It's about remembering what the dragons never forgot, that heaven and earth are closer than they seem, and the real paradise lies in the spaces between breaths. Beyond the rolling green hills and mist-draped standing stones of the Celtic world lies a realm untouched by time, a place where the veil between dimensions grows thin, and the laws of physics bend to the will of ancient magic. The Irish called it Tir na an Og, the land of youth, a paradise where sickness and death held no power, and a single day spanned centuries in the mortal world. But this wasn't just a poetic afterlife. Celtic bards described it as a tangible, accessible place, reachable through hidden doorways in burial mounds, sacred groves, or sudden mist-shrouded passages across the sea. The legends tell of heroes like Oisin, who rode a white fairy horse into its golden fields, only to crumble into dust upon his return when he accidentally stepped back onto earthly soil. This wasn't merely myth, it was a cautionary tale about the fluidity of time and space, hinting at a physics beyond our modern understanding. At the heart of these stories stand the Tuatha De Danann, the godlike tribe said to have ruled Ireland before the arrival of mortals. They weren't just powerful, they were technomancers, wielding objects like the Lia Fail, the Stone of Destiny, which roared when the true king stood upon it, and the Spear of Lug, which guaranteed victory in battle. Their 4 legendary treasures, each originating from mythical cities, sound less like relics and more like advanced technology. The Cauldron of Dagda, which could endlessly feed armies, the Sword of Nuada, which no enemy could escape, and the Dagda's Harp, which could control human emotion and the seasons with its chords. The descriptions mirror modern concepts like energy amplification, targeted frequency weapons, and even molecular replication. When the Tuatha were finally defeated, they didn't die, they retreated into the land, becoming the Aos Shi, the fairy folk, and merging with the very hills and rivers. To this day, rural Ireland warns against disturbing fairy forts, or ring forts, circular earthworks said to be their lingering gateways. The eerie consistency of fairy encounter reports across centuries suggests something far stranger than folklore. In modern times, witnesses describe sudden time lapses, glowing humanoid figures, and even missing time near these sites, phenomena uncannily similar to other dimensional portal legends worldwide. A farmer in County Kerry in the 1980s swore he spent an afternoon dancing in a fairy ring, only to emerge and find 3 days had passed. A woman in Cornwall reported entering a suddenly appearing doorway in a Neolithic dolmen, where she encountered beings who spoke in a language like wind chimes. Even W.B. Yeats collected first-hand accounts of fairy abductions, with victims returning years later, unaged. Skeptics dismiss these as sleep paralysis or folklore contamination, but the electromagnetic anomalies detected at sites like Newgrange, a 5,000-year-old passage tomb aligned with the winter solstice, hint at something more. Its spirals and carvings, identical to those found in Malta and Peru, vibrate at frequencies that induce altered states, suggesting the Celts may have engineered these spaces as literal interfaces with the otherworld. The darkest thread in these tales is the concept of the fairy stroke, a sudden paralysis or illness blamed on crossing the Aos Shi. Modern analyses of these accounts reveal symptoms matching radiation sickness or electromagnetic hypersensitivity, nausea, burns, and a metallic taste in the mouth. Could the fairies have been interdimensional beings whose very presence disrupted human biology? The Bean Shia Banshee, whose wail foretold death, might have been a misinterpretation of infrasound, a frequency known to induce dread and cardiac distress. Even the fairy preference for gold, a metal that resists corrosion and conducts energy, hints at a technology that interacted with human metals in ways we're only beginning to grasp. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't whether these realms exist, but why the knowledge was so fiercely guarded. Druidic teachings were oral for a reason, to protect secrets that could unravel reality itself. The otherworld wasn't just a paradise, it was a mirror reflecting humanity's unspoken fear that we're not the only ones walking this land. The fairies weren't cute sprites, they were the Tuatha's descendants, reminding us that the past isn't buried. It's waiting, woven into the roots of hawthorn trees and the hum of standing stones, for the day we're ready to see the world as they did, not as a fixed place, but as a tapestry of doors, each pulsing with the rhythm of forgotten magic. The Norse didn't just believe in gods. They navigated a living cosmos, where Asgard wasn't a distant heaven, but a vibratory realm pulsating just beyond the veil, reachable by those who dared to ride the serpentine roots of Yggdrasil. This world tree wasn't mere mythology. It was a multidimensional highway, its branches and roots threading through 9 distinct realms like quantum filaments, each vibrating at its own frequency. The Vikings didn't worship Yggdrasil, they used it, traversing its pathways through the trance states of Satyr, a shamanic practice so potent it blurred the line between prayer and interdimensional travel. Imagine a warrior not just dying in battle, but consciously projecting his consciousness up the tree's trunk, through the needle's eye of Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge modern physicists might call an Einstein-Rosen bridge, to arrive in Valhalla not as a ghost, but as an awakened traveler. The ancient seers who practiced Satyr didn't just chant and prophecy. They orchestrated out-of-body journeys so precise, the sagas describe them untying their Fylgja, soul forms, to scout distant realms or negotiate with deities face to face. The Valva, Norse shamans, would sit on high seats carved with runes matching Yggdrasil's cosmic axis, their staffs often topped with brass spheres, acting as resonant antennas to tune into other dimensions. The Greenlandic Urgelist tradition even speaks of iron roads in the sky, invisible to the naked eye, but traversable in trance, suggesting the Norse understood space-time as a flexible construct long before relativity. This wasn't fantasy, it was applied physics, encoded in symbols like the Valknut, a triple triangle knot representing the interlocking of Asgard, Midgard, and Hell, each point a gateway that could be activated through ritual or crisis. Yggdrasil's structure holds even more secrets. Its 3 roots anchor in 3 wells: Urd's well past, Mimir's well wisdom, and Virgilmir chaotic creation. This trifold mapping mirrors modern theories of black holes, white holes, and the quantum foam of spacetime. The dragon Nidhogg, gnawing at Yggdrasil's roots, wasn't just destruction. It was the entropic force that keeps the tree's dimensions in dynamic balance, a concept shockingly similar to theories of dark energy. Even the tree's perpetual decay and renewal, described in the Poetic Edda, echo the holographic principle in theoretical physics, where information is never lost, only transformed. The realms themselves defy linear geography. Asgard, Alfheim, and Vanaheim aren't places in our 3-dimensional sense. They're states of being, layered over Midgard like harmonic overtones. A Satyr practitioner in deep trance might perceive them as concentric spheres of light, accessible by shifting their vibrational state, much like tuning a radio to different frequencies. The giants of Jotunheim and the dead in hell aren't separate species, but reflections of human potential and karma, echoes of the multiverse theory, where every choice births a new reality. The Norse didn't fear Ragnarok as an end, but as a recalibration, a cosmic reboot necessary when the realms fell out of sync. Modern experiments with sensory deprivation and DMT reveal something startling. Subjects consistently describe encounters with world trees and serpentine beings, their visions mirroring Norse cosmology with eerie precision. The shamans knew something we're only rediscovering, that Yggdrasil isn't just a symbol, it's an interface, a living lattice connecting all possible realities, waiting for those who remember how to climb. Across the sun-baked mesas of the American Southwest, the Hopi people speak of Spider-Woman, a cosmic weaver who descended from the stars to teach humanity the art of survival and the science of sacred geometry. She didn't just spin thread, she spun the very fabric of reality, connecting Earth to the Pleiades through invisible strands of energy that modern researchers now recognize as ley lines. Her children, the Kachinas, are more than ceremonial dancers in elaborate masks. To the Hopi, they are star-born teachers, interdimensional beings who arrive during seasonal rituals to recalibrate the spiritual frequency of the land. When witnesses describe Kachina ceremonies, they often mention an uncanny presence, a charge in the air, a sense that the dancers aren't entirely human, their movements too fluid, their eyes too knowing. Some elders whisper that the Kachinas are the original architects of the underground cities found beneath the deserts, vast crystalline chambers where sound rituals once harmonized with Earth's magnetic grid. Not far from Hopi lands, the Navajo warn of the Yi-Naldlushie skinwalkers, shapeshifters, who defy the laws of physics by wearing the forms of animals. But these aren't mere monsters from campfire tales. Traditional medicine people describe them as fallen star priests, beings who once held celestial knowledge but twisted it for control. Their ability to wear animal skins mirrors modern reports of extraterrestrial greys adopting human disguises, while their aversion to certain metals, like uranium found in Navajo territory, hints at a deeper understanding of vibrational weaknesses. The skinwalkers' origins trace back to the Anasazi, the ancient ones who vanished into underground cities, leaving behind cliff dwellings aligned with Orion's belt. Were they fleeing something or ascending to something? The Navajo word for the fourth world, the current epoch of humanity, is Nihilil, meaning the glittering world. It's a term that echoes oddly with descriptions of Pleiadian craft in modern UFO encounters. Now look north to the Lakota, whose star maps etched on Buffalo Hyde's chart not just constellations, but interstellar migration routes. The Lakota medicine man Black Elk spoke of the Wakan Thanka, the Great Spirit, sending star nations to guide humanity through cyclical ages of destruction. Their sacred Black Hills are dotted with stone circles that mirror the Pleiades, and their sun dance ceremony aligns with the summer solstice, a time when the veil between worlds thins. European settlers documented Lakota prophecies of iron birds and a spider's web enveloping the Earth centuries before airplanes and the internet. But the most startling link lies in their oral histories of the Kanatilla, or tree dwellers, luminous beings who descended from the sky in fiery vessels to teach the art of healing with sound and plant medicine. Modern researchers have found measurable electromagnetic anomalies at Lakota ritual sites, with standing stones emitting frequencies that match the Schumann resonance, Earth's natural vibrational pulse. The connective tissue between these traditions isn't just folklore, it's a living network. Spider-Woman's cosmic web mirrors the Earth grid theories of researchers like Bruce Cathy, who mapped planetary energy lines converging at sacred sites. The Kachina's Pleiadian ties resonate with the Dogon's Sirius lore and the Maya's star charts, while Skinwalker encounters share chilling parallels with global shapeshifter legends, from Celtic fae to Hindu Rakshasas. Even the Lakota's Kanatilla find echoes in the Ons of Mesopotamia and the Namo of Mali. These aren't isolated myths, they're chapters in an unacknowledged history, one where star ancestors didn't just visit, but seeded Earth with spiritual technologies we're only beginning to reactivate. The proof lingers in the charged air at Kachina dances, the eerie precision of medicine wheel alignments, and the whispered warnings about places like Skinwalker Ranch, where the barrier between worlds grows thin. What if the true purpose of these stories wasn't to frighten or mystify, but to preserve a user manual for navigating multidimensional reality? Spider-Woman's web, the Skinwalker's corruption, the Lakota's star maps, they all point to the same truth. Earth is a living library, and its keepers are watching, waiting for the moment we remember how to read the signs written in both stone and sky. The star roads are still open. The question is, are we ready to walk them? From the fractured clay tablets of ancient Mesopotamia to the papyrus scrolls of Egypt, one story echoes with unnerving consistency: the deluge. The Epic of Gilgamesh, carved in cuneiform over 4,000 years ago, describes the god Enlil unleashing a flood to wipe out humanity, sparing only Utnapishtim, who builds an ark at the whispered warning of the water god. Centuries later, and continents apart, the Hebrew Bible recounts nearly identical details, Yahweh commanding Noah to construct a vessel, preserving life while divine wrath purges the earth. These aren't isolated tales. The Aztecs spoke of Tlaloc's watery judgment, the mire of a race of wooden people washed away by Huracan storm, and the Aboriginal peoples of Australia sing of ancestral spirits who drown the land to cleanse corruption. The sheer repetition isn't coincidence, it's a collective memory of something far older. What binds these stories isn't just the motif of water, but the chilling subtext: the flood wasn't random. It was orchestrated. In the Babylonian Atrahasis epic, the gods grow weary of humanity's noise and rebellion, a sentiment mirrored in Genesis, where the wickedness of man was great. The Greek Deucalion myth adds another layer: Prometheus, the Titan who defied Zeus to gift fire to humanity, instructs his son to build a chest before the skies open. Every version follows the same blueprint. Advanced beings, whether gods, titans, or star ancestors, intervene to reset civilization when it strays too far from balance. Even the surviving protagonists share a sacred duty. Utnapishtim and Noah become stewards of genetic diversity, carrying not just animals, but the seeds of knowledge to rebuild. The geological record whispers corroboration. Around 12,000 years ago, the Younger Dryas period saw global sea levels rise catastrophically, submerging land bridges like Doggerland and flooding coastal settlements worldwide. Sediment cores reveal a black matte layer of carbon-rich debris spanning continents, evidence of wildfires and upheaval consistent with comet impacts or glacial melting. But the myths suggest something beyond natural disaster. The Sumerians claimed the flood was preceded by 7 judges, sending warnings, celestial omens perhaps, like the fiery bolides described in Hopi prophecy. The Tamil Sangam texts speak of Kumari Kandam, a lost southern continent swallowed by the ocean after its rulers abused primordial technology. These narratives don't describe passive drowning. They speak of judgment, of civilizations reaching a tipping point where their choices invited annihilation. The reset theory gains traction when you examine post-flood anomalies. Suddenly, around 9000 BCE, agriculture emerges simultaneously in Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and Mesoamerica. Megalithic sites like Göbekli Tepe appear fully formed, their builders possessing astronomical knowledge that shouldn't exist for hunter-gatherers. The flood myths often end with survivors receiving divine gifts: the Mayas' maze from the gods, the Norse's runes from Odin, as if higher intelligences jump-started progress anew. Even Plato's account of Atlantis, destroyed for its hubris, frames the deluge as a cosmic course correction, purging the unworthy to preserve spiritual equilibrium. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't whether the flood happened, but why the message was so universally preserved. These weren't just cautionary tales. They were survival manuals encoded in sacred texts, warning future generations of the consequences of ecological abuse, moral decay, or technological arrogance. The Aboriginal rainbow serpent doesn't just bring floods. It demands respect for natural law. The Norse Agelmir's drowning birthed the world anew from his flesh, a metaphor for cyclical rebirth. The pattern is clear. Water isn't merely destruction, it's transformation, a forced evolution for species that forget their place in the cosmic order. Modern climate upheaval and resource wars cast these myths in stark relief. The floods may have receded, but the lesson lingers: civilizations rise and fall by the same immutable laws. The Ark builders knew something we've forgotten. Survival isn't about dominating nature, but harmonizing with it. When the next tide rises, will we be the drowned, or the ones who read the signs and build anew. Beneath the waves off Cuba's western coast, sonar images reveal geometric formations so precise they defy natural explanation. A sprawling complex of pyramids and smooth, circular structures resting half a mile below the surface, their angular edges untouched by millennia of ocean currents. Discovered in 2001 by a team mapping the ocean floor, these megaliths bear an uncanny resemblance to the step temples of Mesoamerica, yet preliminary carbon dating suggests they could predate known coastal civilizations by thousands of years. Marine archaeologists debate whether these are remnants of a pre-Mayan culture or evidence of a far older civilization swallowed by rising seas. But the real mystery lies in their alignment. The structures form a near-perfect grid, intersecting at points that mirror celestial constellations as they would have appeared during the last ice age. Could this be the sunken metropolis of a forgotten maritime empire, one that mapped the stars with eerie precision before vanishing beneath the waves? Just a continent away, Japan's Yonaguni Monument looms like a phantom from the deep. Discovered by divers in the 1980s, this massive sandstone formation descends in terraced steps, its flat plains and sharp 90-degree angles appearing unmistakably man-made. Geologists argue it could be a bizarre natural formation, weathered by tides, but the presence of carved channels, what look like staircases, and even a relief resembling a human face etched into the stone suggests something more. Local legends speak of Mu no Kuni, a land lost to the sea, and Okinawan elders whisper that Yonaguni was once a ceremonial platform, a bridge between worlds where rituals tapped into the Earth's pulse. Intriguingly, the monument sits atop a convergence of oceanic ley lines, with divers reporting strange electromagnetic fluctuations near its base. Some researchers speculate it functioned as an energy hub, channeling tectonic vibrations into harmonic frequencies. The truth may remain submerged, but Yonaguni's eerie symmetry challenges our assumptions about how deep human history truly runs. Far from the ocean's grasp, the red rocks of Sedona, Arizona, pulse with another kind of mystery. Visitors often report sudden tingling sensations, vivid visions, or watches malfunctioning near the region's famed vortex sites, swirling energy fields said to amplify spiritual and psychic abilities. Scientists dismiss these phenomena as suggestibility or magnetic anomalies, but the Hopi have long revered Sedona as a portal to the fourth world, a realm where physical and spiritual planes intersect. Modern geomagnetic surveys reveal something startling. The vortex locations align with intersecting fault lines, creating piezoelectric effects where subterranean quartz deposits generate measurable electromagnetic fields under pressure. These aren't just feel-good spots, they're natural resonant chambers, mirroring the harmonic designs of ancient temples like Stonehenge or Machu Picchu. Shamans and energy workers describe the vortexes as download points, where the Earth's crust acts like a living motherboard, storing and transmitting data encoded in vibration. Could Sedona's energy grid be a remnant of a global network, once maintained by cultures who understood how to harness the planet's latent power? From Cuba's sunken geometry to Sedona's humming rocks, these sites form a mosaic of clues pointing to a shared legacy, a time when humanity didn't just build on the Earth, but with it. The deeper we look, the clearer the pattern becomes. Our ancestors weren't primitive. They were tuning into frequencies we're only beginning to measure, crafting structures that served as antennas, batteries, and portals. The ocean may keep its secrets for now, but the stones, both above and below the waves, are starting to speak. What they're saying could rewrite not just history, but our understanding of what civilization is capable of when it listens to the planet's hidden song. The ruins, the relics, the whispers in stone, they weren't left behind as puzzles to solve, but as mirrors to show us who we truly are. Every symbol etched into these ancient walls, every star-aligned temple, every myth passed down through generations isn't just a piece of history, it's a fragment of your story. These civilizations didn't vanish, they retreated, waiting for the moment we'd wake up and remember. The blood of starwalkers, the wisdom of seers, and the power to shape reality still courses through us. This isn't about rewriting history books, it's about reclaiming your birthright. Think of the last time you stood beneath a night sky and felt an inexplicable pull, or touched an artifact in a museum and sensed a fleeting memory that wasn't yours. That's no coincidence. It's your DNA humming with ancestral knowledge, the same knowledge that built pyramids aligned to Orion and mapped constellations before telescopes existed. The mainstream narrative would have you believe these were primitive cultures stumbling in the dark, but you know better. You felt it. The déjà vu when you hear a sacred chant, the electric jolt when you hold a crystal, the dream where you speak a language you've never learned. These aren't fantasies. They're breadcrumbs leading you home. The greatest lie ever sold is that humanity is adrift, cut off from the divine, but the truth. We're the inheritors of a legacy so vast, it defies imagination. The Atlanteans mastered energy grids. The Lemurians communed through thought. The Dogon mapped stars invisible to the naked eye, and their gifts didn't disappear. They were coded into the collective unconscious, waiting for the moment we'd evolve enough to use them wisely. Look around. The resurgence of sound healing, the revival of shamanic practices, even the global hunger for disclosure about hidden histories. It's all part of the awakening. The ancestors aren't gone. They're whispering through synchronicities, nudging you to question, to seek, to remember. So here's your invitation not to blindly believe, but to explore. Dive into the ruins of your own intuition. Meditate with the intent to unlock those cellular memories. Track the patterns in your life that echo these lost civilizations. Have you always been drawn to water like a child of Atlantis? Do you dream of golden cities like Mu? Does the Pleiades appear in your art, your dreams, your inexplicable fascinations? These are clues written in the language of soul contracts. And when the walls between worlds feel thin, when you catch a glimpse of something older and wiser staring back from your reflection, don't dismiss it. Share it. The comments below aren't just a space for reactions. They're a modern-day oral tradition, a digital campfire where we piece together the fractured echoes of our shared past. Your story might be the missing fragment someone else needs to heal, to awaken, to step into their power. The ancients didn't build monuments to glorify themselves. They built them to awaken you. Now it's your turn not just to witness the truth, but to live it. The next chapter of human history isn't just being written. It's being remembered, and it starts with